I wanted to thank everyone for the overwhelming amount of response that I've received from the last couple videos that I've done, and the responses that I'm continuously getting as far as recommendations for guns and holsters and all kinds of stuff that people are getting back to me and sharing personal stories. And this has just been really great because I don't claim to be an expert on guns, and any resources that anybody wants to send me to, I absolutely love because I'm constantly improving and constantly learning new things. And so it really, really helps to be able to have, this vast amount of community response from people. And something else that I wanted to talk about was the perceived right to carry a firearm, especially in America. And I guess I kind of wanted to go into a little bit of the history of, the media perception. Because there are a lot of movies that I have watched recently, a lot of Westerns, things like, Clint Eastwood, Tombstone, just a lot of the John Wayne, things like that, where there is a period of time portrayed in the Wild West where there was kind of a different attitude about guns and about shooting people, about self-defense. And I feel that this sort of opinion is kind of ever present in American culture, and especially in the way that other countries view us as gun-toting cowboys, basically. And so I'm curious to what extent other countries feel the way that Americans do about our guns. And do they miss out, or do they feel a sense of loss that they aren't allowed to carry a gun? Is this something that only Americans are really passionate about? Because as far as weapons, there's a lot of weapons that you could use for self-defense. And because I've made a couple videos about topics on guns, I've gotten a lot of responses from people from other countries talking about very negatively about Americans and guns. And I've also received comments from people from other countries talking about how they are rallying for, lesser gun control laws in their countries because they aren't allowed to defend themselves or their property with numerous weapons, are completely banned in a lot of countries. And so it just leads me to wonder, with American history and with this being written directly into our Constitution, the right to bear arms, to what extent has this completely changed how we view guns versus a country who wouldn't have that necessarily written into their Constitution? So I feel that the majority of Americans are very, very uncompromising when it comes to how the Constitution is written now. And I mean, even with all the amendments, there hasn't been one in a while. And so at this point, I think people are very hesitant to make any changes to the Constitution for fear of really, really making a lot of people very angry. And so what I'm trying to do is figure out to what extent is gun control more of a universal principle, whereas Americans, because we have this written into our contract, constitutional contract, we feel very, very uncompromising with it, with gun control, with guns, with the ability to protect ourselves because of what we went through when we left England, and being able to have the opportunity to have a militia or to have citizens protecting each other, banding together, to be able to have that option. And I think that that's something that's cited most frequently when gun control is tightened, is that they're afraid of something like that occurring again here in America with the Civil War, and with things we have more of an ability to defend ourselves. And with a country that hasn't had that, I don't think England, I'm not as familiar with English history or even Canadian history, but I do know that both countries have very, very strict gun control laws. And things like that weren't written directly into their governmental paperwork. They weren't part of their history, part of their culture. I feel that for Americans, this is an act of very firmly rooted in rebellion and defiance, and a prideful issue with us, in that we aren't going to let ourselves be taken over. We are very, steadfast in that. And they're the citizens of other countries, without that ingrained sort of American pride that we have regarding our firearms, especially in the South, where I'm, just at the top of, but I've seen a lot of Southern ideals, especially when it comes to defending our country. I just wonder how other people from other countries are, feeling about not having guns. And, is this a right? Is, this tool that I own, this machine that I've been authorized to carry, is this a right of my, being alive? Is this something that I should be entitled to? Because a lot of people feel that way. They feel this is an inalienable right. This is something that shouldn't ever be taken away, that couldn't possibly be taken away, and that this is something that they would fight to the death to defend this right. And it's a tool, I don't necessarily see people as having a right to carry a hammer. I have the right to defend myself. I feel I have the right to continue living, and there are certain tools that I'm authorized to do so, that are made available for me. And I'm thankful for that. I'm thankful that I'm allowed to carry a gun, because it's probably, for such a simple action on my part without much strength required, I can exponentially increase the amount of force that's put into a person's body without having to learn a martial arts class, without having to learn how to use a sword, without, someone can pull a trigger and not even really be very good at shooting guns and still manage to kill someone, whereas with other weapons, it's not always the case. There's a certain amount of skill involved, a certain amount of strength. And so I feel that I'm lucky to be provided with a tool that is very good at the job, as far as, being a very efficient machine. So, there's a certain amount of respect there, but is it a right? Is this something I'm entitled to have? To what extent are we really entitled to anything? But with guns, it's just something to think about, because, I feel like Americans are very prideful people. I know I certainly am, especially when it comes to my rights, my freedoms, because, we're all about being free, the home of the free, and all that. So, I don't know. Again, just gonna wrap this up and say I am super, super thankful for everyone who's been sending me personal messages and things like that, comments. Everybody's been leaving great comments. Just within the past couple months, I've gotten a lot of really good comments. And, a lot of you have really good questions, and I do want to address that in future videos, because, there have been a lot of ideas that people have been, bouncing off me and stuff, and it's really great. So, again, keep them coming, because I love hearing new stuff. Like I said, I'm still learning. I think that we all are until we die. So, anything that you want to throw my way, definitely leave comments, messages, stuff like that. Thanks.